It's time to look at starting to pot up these chilies into the next size pot. This is going to give them a little bit more root space and also some additional feed. This is what they are looking like at the moment. So this is the Palavec that we're doing together, and then this is another variety that I'm growing as well. This is one of them that I've just taken out of the cell. So they're about sort of 4, maybe 5 inches tall, and then I'm going to be popping them on into this size pot. What I'm looking for when I'm selecting a pot is for at least an inch space around the edge for these to have more compost added to them. You wouldn't want to go too big. Most plants do actually like to have somewhere for their roots to work towards, and that will help them continue to grow quickly, but we also want them to be large enough that we're not going to be potting them up again in another week or two. So these should last in here for at least 4 weeks, but these are slower growing than a lot of other plants, so it may be even longer than that. If you haven't got any pots that you can go out and buy, then looking at some of your recycling could be an option as well. So this is just a yogurt pot, and that could be a good size for them as well. So to do this, I'm using a peat-free multi-purpose compost. So this is a mixture of the Durstons and also the Manor Farm one. And this doesn't need to be sieved at this stage. So the extra lumps will give the roots something to hold on to. So that'll be absolutely fine just like that. So all we want to do is pop the first part of the compost into the pot. These aren't leggy in any way, so I'm going to continue popping these at the same height that they are in the compost. If, however, your seed leaves, which are the ones that look like this, and at the bottom have already come off and they're a bit leggy, then you could quite happily go up to the next leaf nodule, and that will just give it a bit more of a stocky plant for you. And then just start filling that compost around the edge and just gently push it down. We're not disturbing the roots quite as much as we did when we pricked these out into this tray. So these hopefully won't sulk as much as they do at that stage. However, it is still quite helpful to move these now to a position where they're still going to be out of direct sunlight, and it gives them a little bit of a rest to recover from the disturbance that we have done. When these are a little bit smaller, so it's maybe a little bit less likely they're going to come out as well. Let's see if we can get a ground peg in here. See if that helps us bring it out. Yep. But even though they are smaller, I am still going to pot these ones up at this stage. If you haven't needed to actually feed your plants up until this point, so they haven't started to go yellow in any way, then this extra compost that we're adding should now feed them for at least the next 4 weeks. So you're likely not to need to feed them for the next 4 weeks at least, or maybe even until they are potted up again. But just keep an eye on any yellowing of the leaves, and if they do look that little bit sad, then we do want to look at feeding them. So that's them all potted on now, and these are going to get watered, and they are okay to water from the top, but I tend to water from the bottom. One of the things that can help with is any issues with fungus gnats on the top of the soil if the compost is very wet at the top. It also encourages the roots down, so it's just a good practice from my point of view that I usually try to follow. These also are still wanting to be inside the house. We're not actually looking at planting these outside or bringing them outside until ideally our night temperatures are around 12 Celsius and not actually dipping down anymore. So these are going to be in the house for quite a while yet. 12 Celsius at night is an ideal temperature for these to start looking at bringing them out, and then we'll be looking at hardening them off. We'll go through that when it's nearer the time. And the reason I say ideally is really because in lots of parts of the UK, we're not actually going to sustain a 12 Celsius night temperature, just like with our tomatoes of a 10 Celsius. We just need to do as best as we can for these plants. But we are going to look at that at a later date. So what you should have now is the main stem And then between each of the leaf nodes, we are hopefully starting to see some shoots where they're actually going to be adding additional branching. And this one here has actually already started doing it. So there's an additional branch, and there's now 2 leaders on this. That is something that is really going to help with chilies, and it will help us produce more. Some people pinch them out. They're not at that stage yet, even if they do, and we will look at that at a later date. But if they branch on their own, then I usually don't actually pinch them out. Or maybe for different varieties, we'd be looking at doing that. And for others, they will often branch on their own. For many of us, our local supermarkets or our garden centres are now starting to have these chili plants in. So if you haven't actually managed to join in with this grow along with growing from seed, then it's really beneficial to pick some up as plants if you do want to join in. One of the things that we want to be really aware of when we're buying the plants, however, is that they don't get shocked by us moving them to an entirely different situation and environment than they've been in. So when you're buying them from a shop at the moment, they're likely to be inside the actual shop rather than outside. And it's important to bring them home, put them into a shaded area for the next 12 to 24 hours, let them relax. Don't normally water them unless they are extremely dry, then I would offer them just a small amount of water, and then build them up to the situation that they're going to be in for yourselves. And so if that's in a window or something like that, then put them in there for a couple of hours and get them used to that natural light rather than just suddenly changing their situation. And then get them well watered after a few days, and they hopefully won't have too much shock. And then we'll be looking at hardening them off at the same time as the ones that we've grown from seed. So at that point, you'll be able to join in with the grow along.